My phone buzzed at 2:14 a.m., a sharp vibration that yanked me out of a restless sleep. I fumbled for it on the nightstand, squinting at the screen through the haze of exhaustion. A bank alert glared back at me, the kind that makes your stomach drop before your brain catches up. Transaction alert, minus $36,842.19. Available balance, $127.43. I sat bolt upright. The air sucked out of my lungs like I'd been punched. I blinked hard, willing the numbers to rewrite themselves, but they didn't budge. $36,000. Gone, just like that. My name's Emily Carter, and I'm a 42-year-old project manager living in a quiet suburb outside Atlanta, Georgia. From wherever you're watching this, stay with me. Have you ever had your world turned upside down by a single number on a screen? Because that's exactly what happened to me 1 week before my birthday. If this story hits you, please hit that like button and subscribe. It helps me keep sharing stories like this one. I stared at the alert, my heart hammering. My first thought wasn't fraud or hackers. It was family. I know how that sounds, but if you've ever been the responsible one in a family that leans on you a little too hard, you get it. I scrolled through my banking app, hands trembling, and there it was, a string of charges, withdrawals, and transfers, all tied to my credit card and linked accounts. A payment to a mortgage company, a cash advance to an auto lender, even a hospital bill. None of it was mine. I live alone, no kids, no spouse, just a tidy 2-bedroom house I worked my tail off to buy. My life is predictable. Work, gym, Starbucks runs on weekends. So how did my account get drained overnight? I called my bank right then, pacing my bedroom in my oversized Braves t-shirt. The automated system put me on hold for 20 minutes, looping the same cheery hold music that felt like mockery. When a rep finally picked up, she sounded half asleep. "Ma'am, can you confirm the last 4 digits of your card?" I rattled them off, my voice shaking. She clicked away, then said, "These transactions were authorized with your PIN and linked to accounts with your name as co-signer." Co-signer? My mind raced. I hadn't co-signed anything in years, not since I helped my parents with their mortgage a decade ago. "Can you freeze everything?" I asked. She did, but the damage was done. My savings, my emergency fund, my safety net, wiped out. I hung up and sank onto the edge of my bed, staring at the hardwood floor I'd refinished myself last summer. My parents, Jack and Linda Carter, lived 30 miles away in a faded split level in Marietta. My younger brother, Ethan, was always in and out of their place, his life a revolving door of bad decisions and broken down trucks. I'd bailed them out before, small stuff, like covering a late electric bill or sending Ethan gas money. But $36,000? This wasn't a bill. This was theft. I dialed my dad's number, my thumb hovering over the call button. It was 3 a.m., but I didn't care. I needed answers. He picked up on the third ring, his voice gravelly, on speakerphone. I heard my mom laughing in the background, some oldies radio station playing like it was a damn barbecue. "Em, what's the matter? It's late," he said, like I was interrupting his evening. "Dad, something's wrong with my account. My card's maxed out. Did something happen?" There was a pause, long enough to make my skin crawl. Then he snapped, "You're always so dramatic, Emily. The family needed help. Your mom had surgery last month. Ethan's truck broke down, and the mortgage was behind. What were you going to do? Sit on all that money?" I froze. My phone pressed so hard against my ear, it hurt. "Why didn't you ask me?" I managed. He scoffed. "We don't need to ask for what you owe us." Then my mom's voice cut in, sharp and careless. "Besides, Emily, what were you planning? A big birthday bash at your fancy house. You can celebrate alone. We had better plans." The words landed like a slap. I sat there, stunned, as the music in their background faded into static in my head. They didn't just take my money. They took it without a shred of guilt, like I was their personal ATM. I said, "Don't ever call me again," and hung up. My voice was calm, but inside, I was shattering. I opened my laptop, the blue light harsh against the dark. I logged into every account, bank, credit cards, auto pay agreements. They thought because I was the steady one, the one who climbed out of their chaos to build a career, they had a lifetime pass to my wallet. But they were wrong. That night, I stopped being their safety net. I started becoming something else, a firewall. If you've ever had to draw a line with the people who raised you, you know it's not just about money. It's about trust. And mine was gone. This is just the beginning of my story. Stick with me, because what I did next changed everything. Hit that subscribe button if you're with me. We're diving deep into a journey of betrayal, boundaries, and taking back what's yours. I sat at my kitchen table, the laptop screen casting a cold glow across my coffee mug, now gone stale. The sting of my parents' words echoed in my head. My dad's scoff, my mom's smug dismissal. We don't need to ask for what you owe us. Owe them. I'd spent my 20s and 30s clawing my way out of their financial messes, building a life in Atlanta they could only dream of. I was the one who made it, a project manager at a tech firm with a 401k and a mortgage I paid on time. And yet here I was, 42, staring at a bank account, gutted by the people who raised me. If you've ever felt like your family saw you as a resource instead of a person, you know this kind of betrayal cuts deeper than any dollar amount. I reopened my banking app, scrolling through the transactions again, each one a fresh wound. There was the mortgage payment, $12,000 to a lender I'd co-signed for a decade ago when my parents' credit was too trashed to qualify. A $9,000 cash advance to an auto lender, probably for Ethan's truck. A hospital bill for $7,500, likely my mom's surgery. Smaller charges littered the rest. Grocery stores, gas stations, even a $200 hit at a liquor store. They hadn't just taken my money. They'd spent it like it was pocket change. I leaned back in my chair, the weight of it sinking in. They didn't ask because they didn't think they had to. To them, my success was their entitlement. I called my dad again that morning, hoping maybe the late-night call had been a fluke, that he'd explain or apologize. He answered with a grunt, the TV blaring in the background, some game show, all cheers and buzzers. "Dad, I need to understand this," I said, keeping my voice steady. "You took $36,000 from my account. How could you do that?" He laughed, a short, bitter sound. "Emily, you've got plenty. You're not out here struggling like us. Ethan's truck was his livelihood. Your mom's health was on the line. You want us to beg you for what's ours?" I gripped the phone tighter. "It's not yours. It's mine. I worked for it." He cut me off. "Family doesn't keep score, Emily. You'd know that if you weren't so selfish." Selfish. The word hit like a dart. I'd paid their electric bill when I was 25, fresh out of college, skipping my own vacations to keep their lights on. I'd covered Ethan's rent when he lost another job, even when he never thanked me. I'd co-signed their mortgage, their car loans, even Mom's medical credit line, because they said family sticks together. But now I saw it clearly. Their version of family was a one-way street, and I was the toll booth. My mom got on the line, her voice dripping with that fake sweetness she used when she wanted something. "Honey, you're blowing this out of proportion. We're your parents. We gave you everything. Clothes, food, a roof. You can't put a price on that." I didn't respond. What do you say when the people who taught you love redefine it as debt? I hung up and opened my email, searching for old messages from them. There they were, from last Thanksgiving. "Emily, we're so proud of you. You're our rock." And Christmas. "You're a blessing, kid. Don't know what we'd do without you." I used to save those emails, rereading them when work got tough or I felt alone. Now they felt like bait, hooks disguised as warmth. I closed the laptop and walked to my living room, staring out at the quiet cul-de-sac. My neighbors were retirees, families, people who didn't know the chaos I came from. I'd built this life, my brick house, my promotion last year, my weekend hikes in the Georgia hills. But my family saw it as theirs to plunder. I started digging deeper, calling the mortgage lender first. The rep confirmed my worst fear. My name was still on the loan, tied to their Marietta house. Mom's credit was too poor to refinance without me, so they'd kept me on, making payments through my auto pay without telling me. The auto lender was next, Ethan's truck loan, another cosign from years back, now defaulted because they'd used my car to cover it. The hospital bill was the kicker. Mom's surgery, which she'd called minor, was billed to a credit line I'd guaranteed. They hadn't just taken money. They'd weaponized my trust, my signature, my entire financial life. By noon, I was on the phone with my boss, Karen, taking a personal day. She'd always been kind, the kind of manager who brought donuts on Fridays and remembered your birthday. "Everything okay, Emily?" she asked. I hesitated, then told her the truth. My family had drained my account. She gasped, "That's theft. You need a lawyer." Her words were a wake-up call. I wasn't just hurt. I was violated. I spent the afternoon researching, finding a financial attorney in downtown Atlanta. I wasn't ready to sue, not yet, but I needed to know my options. The lawyer's words stuck with me. "You're not their bank, Emily. You're their daughter. They crossed a line." That night, I lay awake, the betrayal sinking deeper. My family didn't just take my money, they took my sense of home. But I wasn't going to stay broken. I was already planning my next move, and it wasn't about revenge. It was about reclaiming what was mine. I woke up the next morning with a clarity I hadn't felt in years, like a fog had lifted, and I could finally see the path ahead. My family thought they could bleed me dry, and I'd just take it, like I always had. But $36,842.19 wasn't just money. It was my security, my future, stolen without a second thought. I wasn't going to yell or beg. I was done being their safety net. Instead, I became a scalpel, cutting every financial tie that bound me to them. If you've ever had to sever ties with people who used you, you know it's not just paperwork, it's surgery on your soul. I started with the mortgage. I called the lender, a national bank with a call center that sounded like it was in a windstorm. The rep pulled up the account for my parents' Marietta house. "You're the primary borrower," she said, her voice flat. "Your name's on the title." I'd co-signed 10 years ago, back when I thought family meant carrying their weight. My parents had promised to refinance, but they never did. Mom's credit was a wreck, and Dad's income was spotty. I told the rep, "I'm withdrawing my authorization. Stop all auto pay from my accounts." She hesitated. "That'll default the loan." I took a breath. I understand. By noon, the mortgage was no longer my burden. Let them figure out how to keep their house without my name. Next was Ethan's truck. I called the auto lender, my heart pounding. The loan was in default, tied to my credit because I'd co-signed when Ethan swore he'd get his life together. The rep confirmed a $9,000 cash advance had been pulled from my card to cover missed payments. "Can I revoke my co-signature?" I asked. She explained it wasn't simple, but I could report unauthorized use. I did, and by 2 p.m., the lender had flagged the account. The truck was repossessed that afternoon. I didn't feel triumph, just a quiet resolve. Ethan's livelihood wasn't my responsibility anymore. The hospital bill was trickier. Mom's surgery, billed to a medical credit line I'd guaranteed, was $7,500. I called the provider and explained the situation. Unauthorized charges, financial duress. They agreed to freeze the account pending investigation. I also contacted the credit bureau, freezing my credit to block any new accounts in my name. Then came the utilities, electric, water, even the family phone plan I've been paying for years because Mom's credit couldn't secure a deposit. I called each company one by one and canceled every auto pay. The Netflix, Hulu, Amazon Prime, all in my name because they couldn't afford their own, gone. I even disconnected the Wi-Fi at their house, a small act that felt like reclaiming a piece of myself. By evening, my phone was blowing up, missed calls from Dad, texts from Ethan, even a voicemail from Mom, her voice shrill. Emily, the power's out. What did you do? I didn't answer. I was too busy calling my lawyer, a no-nonsense woman named Sarah, who specialized in financial disputes. She walked me through the next steps: power of attorney revocation, full disassociation from their accounts, and a cease and desist letter if they kept harassing me. "You're not their ATM," she said, echoing my boss's words. "You're their daughter." Her advice grounded me. I wasn't overreacting. I was protecting myself. Guilt crept in, though, like it always does. I thought of Mom's surgery, Ethan's job, their house. Was I too harsh? I called my therapist, Dr. Patel, who I'd started seeing a month earlier after a work burnout scare. "Emily," she said, "you didn't cause their problems. You've been parenting them since you were a teenager." She was right. I remembered being 16, working weekends at a diner to help pay their gas bill. I'd raised them as much as they'd raised me. That realization didn't erase the guilt, but it made it bearable. I wasn't abandoning them. I was abandoning their version of me. At work, I kept it together, but my colleague, Mike, noticed I was off. Over coffee in the break room, I told him a sanitized version: family drama, money issues. He nodded, no judgment. "My sister pulled something like that once," he said. "You gotta draw a line, or they'll keep crossing it." His words stuck with me. I wasn't alone in this. Back home, I kept cutting cords. I changed every password, updated my bank alerts, even switched my direct deposit to a new account. My family thought my kindness was endless, but they'd mistaken it for weakness. That night, I got an email from Ethan. "You're heartless, Em. I lost my truck. How am I supposed to work?" I stared at the screen, my finger hovering over reply, but I didn't. He'd never apologized, never acknowledged the theft. I archived the email and poured myself a glass of wine, sitting on my porch as the Georgia sunset turned the sky orange. The silence was heavy, but it was mine. I wasn't the fixer anymore. I was the firewall, and I was just getting started. The next few days felt like a storm I couldn't outrun. My phone lit up with notifications, texts, voicemails, even emails from burner accounts my parents must have set up. Each one was a mix of anger, desperation, and that fake sweetness they used when they wanted something. Dad's texts were blunt. "Emily, the bank's calling about the mortgage. Fix this." Mom's voicemails dripped with guilt. "We're your parents, honey. How could you let the power go out?" Ethan's messages were the worst, full of curses and accusations. "You screwed me over, Em. No truck, no job. Thanks a lot." I didn't reply. If you've ever had to hold a boundary while the people you love try to claw their way back in, you know it's like standing in a hurricane and refusing to flinch. I kept my routine: work, gym, therapy, to anchor myself. At the office, I buried myself in project deadlines. But my boss, Karen, pulled me aside. "You look like you're carrying the world," she said. I admitted the family mess was escalating. She offered a half-day off, but I declined. Work was my escape, a place where I wasn't the daughter who'd ruined everything. Back home, I checked my mail and found a letter from the mortgage lender. The Marietta house was in default. My parents had 30 days to catch up or face foreclosure. I set the letter on my counter, untouched, like it was radioactive. It wasn't my problem anymore. Then came the social media barrage. Mom posted on Facebook a vague status that screamed victim. Sometimes the ones you love most break your heart the deepest. Her friends flooded the comments, none of them knowing the truth. "You don't deserve this, Linda," one wrote. "Kids today are so ungrateful," said another. I wasn't tagged, but I didn't need to be. I unfollowed her, then Ethan, then half the family group chat I'd created years ago. My cousin, Sarah, messaged me privately. Did you really cut off their gas? It's cold in Marietta. They're struggling." I typed back, "I didn't cut it off. I stopped paying for it." She didn't reply, just left me with those 3 typing dots that faded to nothing. That silence hurt, but it also felt like proof I was doing something right. The pressure kept building. Dad left a voicemail about a hospital bill, claiming they couldn't afford his meds without my help. I listened to it once, then deleted it. Dr. Patel, my therapist, had warned me about this. They'll escalate when they realize you're serious. She was right. I started getting calls from numbers I didn't recognize. Probably family, friends, or distant cousins roped into their pity party. I blocked them all. My lawyer, Sarah, sent the cease and desist letter, warning my parents to stop contacting me about financial matters. I doubted they'd listen, but it felt like planting a flag. This far, no further. Then came the wedding invite. My cousin Laura, Sarah's sister, was getting married in a vineyard outside Athens, Georgia. Laura and I had always been close. She was the quiet one who saw me before I was the family fixer. I wanted to be there for her, but I knew my parents would be too. The thought of facing them made my stomach churn. I RSVP'd anyway, telling myself I wouldn't let them steal Laura's day from me. I spent the week preparing, not just my outfit, but my mindset. Dr. Patel gave me a mantra: "You don't owe them your peace." I repeated it like a prayer. The night before the wedding, I got an email from Mom, sent from a new address. Subject: "We didn't raise you to be cruel." I didn't open it. I didn't need to. Her words were just another hook, baited with guilt. Instead, I sat on my couch, sipping tea from a mug I'd bought myself at a flea market last summer. It was plain, white, no cheesy slogans, just mine. I scrolled through my bank app, double-checking the new account I'd set up, the one they couldn't touch. My credit was frozen, my passwords changed, my life locked down. But the real work was internal. I was teaching myself that family wasn't a debt I had to pay forever. I thought about Mike, my coworker, who'd shared his own story about cutting off his sister. "It's not about hate," he'd said. "It's about survival." That stuck with me. I wasn't cutting my family off to punish them. I was doing it to save myself. Still, the guilt lingered, especially when I imagined Mom shivering in their dark house or Ethan jobless. I pushed it down, reminding myself of Dr. Patel's words: "You're not their parent." I'd spent decades playing that role, but I was done. As the wedding loomed, I felt the weight of what was coming. My parents wouldn't confront me directly. They preferred sideways glances and whispered complaints. But I knew their presence would be a test. Could I stand in the same room and not crumble? I packed my black dress, not for mourning but for strength, and drove to the vineyard with my head high. I wasn't just Emily, the dutiful daughter, anymore. I was Emily, the woman who'd learned her worth the hard way. I pulled into the vineyard parking lot, the Georgia sun glinting off rows of grapevines that stretched toward the horizon. Laura's wedding was in full swing. White chairs lined up on a manicured lawn, a string quartet playing softly, and guests in pastel dresses and press suits mingling with champagne flutes. I stepped out of my car, smoothing the black satin dress I'd chosen, not to mourn, but to mark my transformation. At 42, I wasn't the Emily my family expected anymore. The fixer, the bank, the daughter who'd always cave. Today, I was here for Laura, but I knew my parents, Jack and Linda, would be watching, waiting for a crack in my resolve. If you've ever had to face the people who broke you and still hold your ground, you know it takes more than courage. It takes defiance. I spotted them as I entered the reception hall, their presence like a cold draft. Dad stood by the bar, leaning on a cane he didn't need last month, his rented tux a size too big. Mom was in a loud floral dress, her laugh too sharp, her eyes scanning the room until they landed on me. I felt their stares, not warm or loving, but calculating, measuring the distance between the daughter they knew and the woman I'd become. I didn't flinch. I walked past, head high, and joined Laura's friends at a table near the dance floor. They welcomed me with easy smiles, unaware of the storm brewing in my chest. The ceremony was beautiful. Laura glowing, her vows heartfelt, the kind of moment that makes you believe in love again. I clapped with the crowd, but my parents' glares burned into me from across the lawn. They didn't approach, but they didn't need to. Their silence screamed, "Fix this, Emily. Be our daughter again." I ignored it, focusing on Laura's joy, letting it anchor me. At the reception, I laughed with her friends, swapped stories about our college days, and sipped a glass of Pinot Grigio. For the first time in weeks, I felt light, like I could breathe without bracing for the next blow. Then Mom made her move. She walked past my table during dinner, pausing just long enough to rest a shaky hand on my chair. "You look different, Emily," she said, her voice low, laced with something I couldn't quite place, regret, maybe, or just loss. I met her eyes, steady. "I am." She opened her mouth, but I raised a hand, calm but firm. "I'm here for Laura, not you." Her face crumpled, not from sorrow, but from the realization that I wasn't hers to pull back. She walked away, her heels clicking on the hardwood, and I turned back to my table, joining the conversation like nothing happened. But inside, I was shaking. That moment wasn't just a boundary. It was a declaration. Dad tried next during the toasts. He raised his glass, his eyes locking on mine across the room, like he expected me to mirror him, to offer some gesture of peace. I didn't. I kept my hands in my lap, my gaze steady. Peace doesn't come from pretending betrayal never happened. It comes from walking through the fire and refusing to carry someone else's ashes. He lowered his glass, his face tightening, and I knew he saw it. I wasn't his ATM anymore. I was untouchable. The dance floor opened, and I joined Laura's friends, letting the music, a mix of Motown and modern hits, pull me in. I danced hard, my heels aching, my laughter louder than it had been in months. It wasn't just fun. It was defiance, a middle finger to the guilt my parents tried to drape over me. Mom and Dad watched from their table, their faces sour, but I didn't care. I spun with Laura, her wedding dress swirling, and for that night, I was free. I wasn't fixing, apologizing, or paying for the mistakes I was living. As the night wound down, I slipped outside to the vineyard's patio, the air cool against my skin. I thought about Dr. Patel's words, "You don't owe them your peace." I'd spent decades believing family meant sacrifice, that love meant saying yes even when it hurt. But standing there, the stars bright above the Georgia hills, I realized love could also mean saying no. My parents hadn't just stolen $36,000. They'd stolen the version of me who believed I had to earn their approval. I wasn't giving her back. I left the wedding without goodbyes, driving home to my quiet Atlanta suburb. When I got there, I sat on my couch, still in my dress, and opened my banking app. One last auto-pay lingered, a small one I'd missed, the storage unit, where Mom kept her keepsakes. I canceled it, the final cord cut. It felt like shedding the last piece of my childhood, the one they'd used to chain me to their chaos. I poured a glass of water, no wine tonight, just clarity, and looked around my house. This was mine, my life, my rules, my peace. The wedding wasn't the end, but it was the moment I knew I'd never go back. My parents could glare, guilt, or grovel, but I was done playing their game. I was Emily Carter, not their daughter on demand, and I had one more chapter to write in this story, one where I didn't just survive, but thrived. The vineyard wedding was a turning point, but it wasn't the end. It's been a year since that midnight bank alert, since my parents, Jack and Linda, and my brother Ethan, drained $36,842.19 from my account and called it family duty. A year since I cut every financial cord, mortgage, utilities, loans, and built walls out of self-respect. At 42, I'm not the Emily Carter they knew, the daughter who'd fix their messes with a check and a smile. I'm someone new, living on my own terms in my Atlanta suburb, and the peace I've found is worth more than any dollar they took. If you've ever had to rebuild after betrayal, you know it's not just about moving on. It's about choosing yourself every single day. Stick with me to the end. And if this story resonates, hit that subscribe button for more tales of breaking free. The guilt used to hit like a fire alarm, waking me at night with visions of my parents' dark house or Ethan's repossessed truck. Now it's just a faint hum, easily drowned out by the truth. I gave them my trust, my heart, and they treated it like a credit line with no limit. I didn't just cut them off financially. I stopped chasing their approval. My therapist, Dr. Patel, helped me see it. You were their parent, Emily, not their child. She's right. I was 16 when I paid their gas bill with diner tips, 25 when I skipped vacations to cover their rent. I raised them as much as they raised me, and letting go wasn't cruelty. It was growing up. I built something new this year. My house, a 2-bedroom brick ranch, is my sanctuary, filled with things I chose. A flea market lamp, a bookshelf of novels I actually read, a coffee maker that doesn't remind me of anyone's expectations. My job at the tech firm is steady, and my boss, Karen, promoted me to senior project manager last spring. Mike, my coworker, became a friend, grabbing lunch with me at the deli across from our office, swapping stories about family drama over turkey sandwiches. My circle is small, but real. People who see me, not what I can give. My birthday this year was quiet, no grand plans, just me and my cousin Laura. She showed up at my door with a homemade vanilla cake, candles flickering, and a grin. You were never the problem, Em, she whispered as we lit the wicks. You were the first to escape. We didn't make wishes. We just breathed, the kind of deep, unburdened breath you take when you're finally free. Laura's the only family I kept, not because of blood, but because she never asked for my pieces as payment. We ate cake on my porch, the Georgia night warm, fireflies blinking in the yard. It wasn't loud or flashy, but it was mine. My parents haven't called since the wedding. Mom still posts on Facebook cryptic jabs about ungrateful kids that her friends eat up. Dad plays the victim in family circles, limping on that cane he doesn't need, telling anyone who'll listen, I abandoned them. I don't care. Their voices don't echo anymore. I blocked their numbers, muted their drama, and let their words fade into the background. Ethan sent one last email, begging for cash to start over. I archived it, unread. They can rebuild without me, just like I did without them. Therapy taught me something else. Betrayal doesn't just break you. It shows you what you're made of. Dr. Patel asked me to write down what I gained this year. I listed my new bank account, untouchable by anyone but me. My promotion, earned through late nights and grit. My friendships, built on respect, not obligation. But the biggest gain was clarity. I used to think family meant saying yes, no matter the cost. Now I know it means choosing who gets to stay in your life and who doesn't. That's not cold. It's survival. I started sharing my story online, not for pity, but to connect. My DMs filled with messages from strangers, coworkers, even Mike's sister, who said, "I've been you, Emily. Thank you for saying it out loud." Their words reminded me I wasn't alone. I'd rewritten myself, not the selfish daughter my family painted, but a woman who chose peace over chaos. I still hike in the Georgia hills on weekends, my boots crunching on trails, the silence louder than any guilt. I still stop at Starbucks, but now I linger, savoring my latte without rushing to fix someone else's crisis. This journey wasn't about revenge. It was about reclaiming my life. If you're carrying a family that sees you as a resource, know this. Boundaries aren't cruel. They're oxygen. You don't owe anyone your peace. I learned that the hard way, but I'm living proof you can come out stronger. My story's just one of many, and I'd love for you to stick around for more. Subscribe and hit the bell. We've got plenty of tales about breaking free and building new beginnings. Tell me in the comments, have you ever had to draw a line with family? I'm reading everyone.